You're listening to Rebel Spirituality with me, Sam Goldfinch. Here's the truth. Wisdom doesn't follow rules. So each week we're going to explore what it means to wake up your way so you can live a more peaceful, creative and inspired life no matter your circumstances. It's time to blaze your unique path to truth. Hey Rebel friend, just wanted to say a massive thank you to any of you who have been supporting me over on Substack. So as you may know, I've just started a publication over there. Each week, the Rebel Spirituality the newsletter or written riff, as I like to call them, will come out to your inbox so you can read them on the app as well if you'd prefer. And so thank you for all the support and the comments. It means a lot. It's just so nice to have just an interaction with you. So if you listen to a podcast or if you read one of those, I'd love for you to just interact in some way with me. Like, it'd be really nice to just have a space where we can chat and you can reflect, and I'll always do my best to get there personally and respond to those. And so thank you very much for your support. And if you'd like to check that out, if you haven't already, just hit the link in the show notes and you'll get taken straight through to that, so you can sign up and see what's what. Right, I'll hand you over to me. See you there. Hey Rebel. Right, so we're going to talk about being off track today, like whether it's actually possible to be off track. And I'll explain what I mean by that. But the reason this has come up this week is that I had a really lovely conversation with someone recently, and they really felt like they weren't on track, right? Now, this could be to do with anything. It could be, I don't feel like I'm on track with becoming alcohol free or reducing my drinking. It might be, I don't feel like I'm on track with accomplishing my goals, or, all these different things that can kind of come up for us in this life that we have. And I think it's really cool to reflect on this, because the way it looks to me is that it's not ever possible to be completely off track in the sense that we normally think about it. And I will unpack that over the course of this podcast, because I think it's important. And I think the reason I think it's important is that it relieves a lot of pressure. It relieves a lot of self-judgment. It allows us to be open to the movement of life, which is always there, moving through us. We are that movement, of course. There is no distinction between us and life. We are life. You are life. And so it brings a real sense of relief into the system, particularly if you've been telling yourself off because you're not, in air quotes, on track, or however it is that you've been kind of talking to yourself in this way. So you'll have heard me say a number of times, Sid Banks, he used to say, everybody's doing the best they can with the thinking that looks real to them. My good friend Jamie, he says everybody's doing what makes sense at their current level of understanding. And something I've been saying more and more myself recently is we're all doing what makes sense at our body mind is also doing what makes sense at its current level of understanding. Okay, so it's a systemic thing at the end of the day. So when we think about you, when I say, well, we're always doing what makes sense or you are, it can feel like, well, that's the kind of voice in my head that's making the decisions and calling the shots, like Sam's calling the shots. But I think it's powerful to reflect and think, no, the body mind, our neurology, our physiology, our biology, there's stuff going on at that level which we don't have full sight of, but the results of it are clear for us, because what we're doing is the last domino, if you like. The behavior is the last domino. Preceding that are all of the reasons from a neurological, biological sense, all of that stuff as to why something is actually making sense to us. And it's important to know this, as it looks to me, because it's a universal for everybody. And the thing is, when we believe innocently that we're breaking that universal pattern as to how it works, then we feel like there's something wrong with us. We feel like, why can't I do this thing? I know I don't want to do it. And we start telling ourselves off in our head, because we're like, it's occurred to me a million times that this probably isn't the best idea. And yet here I am still doing it. But coming to honor that somewhere in the system, even if you don't have full sight of it, somewhere it makes sense. A classic example of this is someone who's kind of saying, I don't know why I keep reaching for alcohol. I know it's bad for me. I know it doesn't make any sense. And yet I keep finding myself reaching for it at certain times. But if someone hasn't yet had the insight to show them that their feelings and their emotions are completely safe, then they'll find themselves reaching for that thing seemingly on autopilot. And even though it's going against the thing that they seem to consciously know in their head, right? So just relieving the pressure, allowing ourselves to see, well, if I'm still doing something, if I'm off track, to use that language, if I'm not kind of towing the line or whatever it might be, if I'm up to stuff I don't want to be up to, what if actually it's not so much that I'm choosing that in the traditional sense, What if there's still something for me to see here? And what if in taking the drink or in smoking the spliff or in whatever the behavior is, right? What if that opens up an invitation for you to see something? What if actually that's a powerful thing? And so even when we feel like we're off track, what happens is we tend to get nudged back towards the movement where the greater movement of life is taking us. So ultimately nothing is really lost. Now, I'm not saying that it can't be uncomfortable or painful or difficult or that we don't suffer from time to time. But what I'm saying is there's a greater movement. There is a wisdom moving through you. And if I reflect on my experiences of overcoming and, just perhaps that's the wrong word, just kind of having true transformation around areas of my life where I dearly wanted to experience freedom and a sense of relaxation and peace. If I reflect and look back at some of the most difficult times, I see how they were central for me seeing what I needed to see. And so there's a freedom in that because it means that you can't really go wrong. And it means that in the lightness, here's the cool thing, is that in the lightness of knowing that, in the relief of knowing that, in the relief of knowing you haven't, it's not like you went, and now next week, everything's been going great, and now next week on Tuesday morning at 10 a.m, I'm going to go off track. Like you didn't plan it like that, right? It just kind of happened. And then we tell ourselves off for this thing that we did. But actually, it's just the movement based on how the world looks to us, what makes sense to our body, mind. And the relief and the opening from that allows something else to move through us. Because as we stop judging ourselves for that thing that's been so innocent, completely innocent in that thing that we've been up to, no matter how much we've been judging it, we can understand more deeply. I recorded a podcast a while ago now called, when we judge something, we can't understand it. And that includes others, that includes ourselves too. And so to just see through that, and that doesn't mean that a judgment thought doesn't appear, but it means that you don't have to feed it. You don't have to throw any more in it. You don't have to go down that route and follow that kind of mental chain. You can kind of say, okay, look, there's that. But here I am, and I can see that I'm doing the best I can, and that's what I've been up to. And then that sense of compassion for ourselves, that sense of gentle holding. The worry we often have is that, well, I'll go off the rails, Sam. Like if I'm already not on track, or if I've gone off the rails and I'm trying to control things, and this is me with all this judgment, what would it be like if I didn't do any of that? But actually, the ease and the sense of curiosity that can come in, and that sense of love and understanding is a very powerful as well as beautiful energy with which to live our life. And the power of insight is amazing. Insights can come at any time. We don't have to have less on our mind, but I think the power of insight generally tends to take things off our mind. And if we can just see through judgment, if we can see through the way that we've been telling ourselves off, that insight will come like it's being delivered to you. I don't know exactly when it will land, but it's coming. And yeah, the thing is insight, the thing that's going to, sight from within, as Sid used to say, the thing that's going to really show us something new. It's going to bring in a new level of understanding and change what makes sense to us. That's something that you can't make that happen at the level of the intellect through trying to tell yourself off from all the things that you know. It's a movement that comes from the formless. It comes from source. It comes from life. It comes from God. It comes from the unmanifested. It comes from the wisdom and intelligence behind life. It comes from the fertile void. It comes from the unknown. However you relate to this, it comes from consciousness. It comes from unconditioned awareness. It comes from being. It comes from who you really are. Whatever you're languaging, that's where that comes from. And so as we start to relax into that, as we start to see that inner GPS that we often talk about, you may have heard me talk about that, it's always on. It's always on, even in the moments where we feel like we're most lost. What if we're actually being shown the way home, even then too? What if that's actually true? I hope you have a wonderful week. It's lovely to be here with you. I'll see you soon.